it's a ticket. Talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. And it's a ticket. Talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma.
Hi, Sarah. Nice to see you again.
Hi there. Great to be with you.
Thank you for accepting my invite, and I'm really excited about our conversation. So, yeah, let's just get right in it. I would love for you to tell my audience a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yeah, so it's great to be here. My name is Sarah Levy. I am a licensed therapist. I'm a somatic experiencing practitioner and a registered yoga teacher. I have a private practice where I do individual therapy, and then I also have a membership space called the Full Cup Collective, which is really for high achieving adults, millennials who are on the edge of burnout and seeking some simple tools to decompress and to carve out time for themselves. And so often, right, those are moms, right, who are struggling to really prioritize that space to be able to listen to what it is that they're needing and wanting, and then to be able to actually do that thing too. So, yeah, I'm really passionate about sort of helping adults, helping millennials and parents figure out how to care for themselves amidst it all.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned millennial because that was something that I thought of while you were introducing yourself right now. I feel like this is such a positive compared to the previous generations, like how we want to like cultivate that health care. And it also, I find from moms, a lot of times it comes from a place of like, healing ourselves so that we are, connecting better with our children and creating better relationships so we don't repeat the same maybe traumas that we've experienced. So I think it's such a like more popular but positive thing that characterizes the millennial mom.
Absolutely. It is totally this generation, right? Of us trying to like do things a little bit differently, maybe a little bit better, a little bit more grounded, a little bit more regulated. And it's for sure millennials.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned this when we first connected, but I love that marriage between it seems really holistic how you're a licensed therapist, I think about mental health, but then you're also a yoga instructor and you do a lot of like somatic healing. If you could elaborate more about that to the audience who isn't so familiar with that, but just that marriage of like mind and body, that's what I get. And I think that's such an important approach, and thinking of the body as like a full vessel and not just, kind of like how it is in Western medicine sometimes, that just, different systems that don't necessarily work at the same work together.
Absolutely. Yeah. So another sort of like component of my background, right, is that I grew up as a dancer, and I really became so interested in this connection between the mind and body, as you named, as like I developed this curiosity. I was like, there is something here that's happening when I get to move my body, when I get to be in community, that like I don't know what it is that's going on, and it's more than endorphins, right? It's more than, oh, it's good to like hang out with a friend. There is something sort of special happening here, and that I think sparked my curiosity around it. And then when I pursued becoming a therapist, I knew I wanted to do something that was going to bridge the mind and body. I just felt like the way I understood therapy, the way I had experienced it, prior to grad school, was that it was all neck up, right? It was all just like what's
Right.
going on in the head. And I knew there were all these things happening in the body too. And so I discovered somatic experiencing through some incredible supervisors when I was in grad school. And the real foundation of somatic work or somatic experiencing is all about our nervous system responses. And if you're unfamiliar with the nervous system, or if you've heard that like phrasing, but you're like, I don't actually know what that is, it's really just one of these like internalized systems that's designed to protect us. It's designed to keep us safe. But that as a result of it protecting us and keeping us safe, there's all these things physiologically that happen that can really impact sensation. It can really impact our emotions. It impacts how we're feeling, how we're doing in the moment. And the more we tune into it, the more we can start to like really recognize how we're feeling in the moment, which I think, again, as like parents, as millennials, we so often are sort of like trying to attend to the demands of our lives and ignore those things that are happening in our bodies. And so much of the Full Cup Collective is all about sort of not only practicing carving out that space for ourselves, but starting to be able to like really listen to what's going on inside so that we can start to make really informed decisions about how we care for ourselves. So that it's less like, oh, I want to do self care. I should go to a yoga class, or I should, I don't know, like drink some water, which are both wonderful things. And in the moment, maybe that's not what you want, right? Maybe your body's wanting something else. And so being able to start to listen to that feels like a really key component of our own sustainability.
I love that. And it's fun, like you mentioned at the end, yes, sometimes when people think about self-care, they're thinking like, okay, I don't feel so great. I should do, and they just go down the list. Oh, maybe it's water, maybe, eat some more protein or veggies. And sometimes it's true, like we don't even have the language or maybe not even the awareness to go deeper and realize, because I'm just only this year I've been more familiar with like somatic therapy and somatic work and things like that. So I think it's so important to even be aware of things that we could be more in tune with. And if you could give us like some tips or like how can we become close to having full cups?
Yeah, how do we do that, right?
Yeah.
So, one of the key components to me is being able to actually carve out the time where you get to just be with you. So, that like time for you, which again, I know I am also a parent of a toddler, like finding that time, and I work full time, right? Like finding that time can be so hard. It can feel really challenging, but there's sort of like some specific things I like to invite for people. One is extending any time or any space you have to yourself, right? So adding an extra like minute to it, an extra 5 minutes to it if you want to, but really extending any time you have just for you. So if that's in the bathroom, in the shower, in your car, walking your dog, right? Like whatever it is that you're doing where you have a moment for you, taking an extra beat and starting to just check in with like, how does my breath feel as I'm doing this right now? Like a really simple question. Is my breath feeling deep and full, or is it short? Right? Can I just notice it? Other things too, right? In those moments where you can extend that little bit of alone time, sensing your feet into the ground, like, can you feel something solid underneath you? Maybe you're in your car, right? And you're commuting or something. Like, can you feel the pedals underneath your feet or your foot, right? Can you feel the chair underneath you? Can you sense into the temperature of it, right? These are really sort of like simple and maybe even obvious ways, right, of starting to like connect with what's going on. But it's really starting to look for these small moments just for you, where we start to build and flex that muscle of really deep listening, right?
Yeah.
So that's like the first piece, is like extending those alone moments wherever you can find them. The second piece, right, is there are these specific practices again that I love introducing people to within my membership space that are really oriented around like, how can I not only tune in but also move my body from feeling overwhelmed, exhausted, what have you, to feeling like I have a little bit of a release, or that I feel like I can build some energy in my body when I'm feeling just exhausted and I know I need to keep on doing something. And so I have some like specific tools that I love to use for people, and I'm happy for us to do or try out a couple together if we want to. But these are just sort of like little ways that, again, they you can do them with other people around, right? Some of these are ones that like nobody will know you're even doing as you're doing them, but some of them are just sort of like really simple ways of starting to, again, really connect with, what is my body actually wanting right now? What is the impulse inside? Because again, so often, as you sort of named, right? So often it's like, oh, I just need like a week vacation, or I just need like a
Right.
massage, right? Like, I just need a day. And those things are good. Those things are wonderful and they're a great reprieve, but they actually often don't really like move the needle on us really developing a practice of like nourishing ourselves emotionally, physically, between that mind body connection. So, yeah, those are sort of the two key pieces. Extend that alone time and then implement some of these practices. And again, we can do a couple right now if you'd like,
Yeah.
that can start to help you sort of move through things.
I'd love that. But before, when you started talking about just taking a moment to breathe or feel the sensation on your feet. First of all, I love those because it's something that anyone can do anywhere. Like you have to breathe 24/7 and your feet are always somewhere. But like you mean like taking off your shoes and really feeling the sensations, right? And the first word that came to my mind was mindfulness. And I feel like people throw that around and don't really think about what it means. It's like, right, it's like disconnecting from a minute and being in the moment, like not being on autopilot. And that's something so true because sometimes I have to tell myself that, like, and not even if I just feel a little bit overwhelmed, just like take 2 minutes to just breathe. And then you realize how it makes your mind and your body automatically slow down. Just something so simple as paying attention to your breath. So it might sound simple, but it's so effective. And the feet thing, haven't tried that before. I'm gonna try that. Like just taking a moment to really slow down and try to see what you're feeling, right? Realize what you're feeling.
Exactly. Yeah. Mindfulness is sort of the foundation of somatic work is getting mindful about what's going on inside, right? And there's all
Yeah.
these different sort of windows into it. Breath is one of them. Our feet, right? Like using your physical body to really help you like ground and orient to where you are in this moment and how much, as you named, right? It helps us to like slow down from the chaos of it all. And again, sometimes it's really chaotic. I really want to validate that for folks. Like, again, I have a 2.5-year-old, like, she's constantly like all over the place. I turn my back for 1 second and like there's, she's like colored everywhere. Right. So,
Right.
like, sometimes the ability to slow down can feel so challenging. And again, carving out those spaces, it does do something really effective for us.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, so you said that we can try some now. I would love to be your volunteer.
Yeah, let's do a couple things together. Okay, I want to be able to see myself so that
Yeah,
make
sure.
sure you all can track this. Okay, so one of the first ones that I love to do, which is really actually like a havening technique, if folks aren't familiar, it's a way of settling the body, is starting just to sort of like brush on your arms. So really gently, just sort of like brushing, almost like you're like brushing sand off of yourself. And you can do this over your hands, your palms. You can go all the way up to your shoulders and just really thinking about like brushing something off. And you can switch sides and go to the other one. And really the like neuroscience behind all of this, the like nervous system information behind this is the idea that we are sort of like gently brushing something off of ourselves as we're sending signals to the brain, to the body, that like in this moment there is not a threat, that we're okay in this space, in this moment. And then if that feels okay, we can start to do some sort of like gentle squeezes down the arms. Yeah, and just noticing. You can do one arm at a time. You can do both arms. There's no right or wrong here. I really would invite folks to get curious about like what feels right to me here. What feels like curious to me here as I try this out. And then the last one, right, is doing just some gentle pats. So just giving your shoulders some gentle pats. You can come all the way down, just really waking up like the outside of your arms, waking everything up here. Okay, and then just as you're ready, I'm going to invite you just to bring your hands down, bring your arms down just for a second. I want you to just tune into what happens with the sensations in your arms, what happens to your breathing in this moment.
I already feel relaxed, and I'm like, how was that? I didn't do anything. I just patted
Right,
myself.
right.
I feel more loose.
Yeah, something feels a little bit more loose. Something feels a little bit more settled. I noticed my own breath sort of settled a little bit more too, right? Like, oh, yeah. And that's like one small thing that took us like
Yeah.
maybe 30 seconds, right? Like,
Yeah, so we all have time. We all have a minute.
it can really feel like we don't, but we do. We can do
Yeah.
it. And that the like, the key to this, right, is that like not only do we get to feel like we've loosened something up in the moment, but that for the folks who come to me who are like, I need this support right now, they feel like so disconnected. They're like, I don't even know how to listen to what it is my body wants. My attention is so focused on like what my kids want, what my job wants, what my family needs from me. Like I don't even know how to start to listen. And these are the like little steps we can start to take to being like, oh right, I do have, this is my body. I can actually like tend to it in these small ways, and that it will talk to me. It'll tell me that things are actually feeling a little bit better or a little bit more activated or what have you. That our bodies will tell us as we start to tune in. And the more we practice this, right, the more we continue to engage in practices like this, the easier it becomes in these big and small moments to be able to say, you know, this is actually what I'm needing right now. For self-care, I actually need to go outside and be in nature versus call a friend versus, you know, take a nap, right? Like we start to get so much more highly attuned to like how to tend and care for ourselves in the same way that we know how to tend and care for everybody else, right? But
Right.
we're now sort of turning all of that attention towards us the more we practice.
Yeah, when it's so funny, like I feel like moms have that, like the worst of attending to everyone else and putting their self last. In my field, it's the same with nutrition. Like the moms will tell me how they make these amazing meals for their children and their husband, and they're like eating standing up and eating leftovers, and so I'm like, you deserve to nourish your body too. Sit down, make a plate. Don't survive off of leftovers. But yeah, it's funny how we try to survive on fumes, whatever's less. So whatever's left. So do exercises like this. They don't even require you to get out a yoga mat or anything. You could just do it anywhere. So there's no excuse, and we should prioritize this.
Right, right. I love that example, right? Like how quickly and how easily we just drop our own needs to that bottom of that list. Like everybody, I love the idea, right? Like your whole family has like a beautifully made dinner and you're like hovering over the sink, like shoving leftovers into
Yeah.
your mouth while you do the next thing, right? Like that it's so relatable. And also that, you know, the the practice of starting to make yourself your own plate, right? Being able to sit down, the like being able to pull back and slow down, how important and simple it can be sometimes.
Slow down, become more aware.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So have you, because as I'm saying this, I'm guilty of that too. Like, especially in
Totally.
the beginning. Like I tell this to moms, and then like I've been there, but I have to like you said, do the same thing to my with all my awareness. I have to do the same thing. Like tell myself, okay, slow down, make a play. So do you find yourself also like as a health professional, like with all the mindfulness, like times where you have to like tell yourself, okay, Sarah, like get it together, let's center yourself.
Absolutely, right? Like I'm human as we all are. Like this is I come to this work like so humbly, right? That like I too have struggled in these ways in different sort of like seasons of my life where
Right,
my own needs just due to what was going on in my life just felt like they dropped all the way down to the bottom, which is why I feel so passionately about this. This is my own practice just as much as it's one that I feel like I bring to others. Like it is a constant practice of like, oh, I all of a sudden just prioritized what everybody else wanted in this moment, and I didn't actually factor what I needed in this moment. And can I carve out the space for myself now? Right. But of course, I mean, there are times where it feels like it comes more easily and times where I turn around and I'm like, wait a second, what did I just do there? Right. Like,
right.
how did I just make sure that like everybody else was dressed and ready to go out of the house and I have not actually like brushed my teeth yet? Right. Like,
Right, that happens.
yeah.
Right. Yeah, well, especially the first year, I want to say that was like the first 6 months, I was like, okay, I gotta snap out of this. But it took me a solid year to get like back in the groove, and but still, even today, like I still have times where I'm like, okay, like you matter too. Let's slow down, eat something, drink some water.
Right, you matter too. Yeah. I mean, the first 6 months, I feel like for me of, you know, postpartum was a total fog and really relatable to me that the first after the year, I was like, okay, we've arrived. But again, at every stage of parenthood, right, there's like these new phases of like challenges and joys and finding more of that space for yourself and also new ways that our like our nervous system and the mind body gets like activated in different ways, right? The way a toddler might sort of like activate something within us that feels really challenging is different than when a baby does. But it's all like new learning for me, at least, about my own body and what it's needing. And the idea, too, right, is that, the thing that works for you today, if, the sweeping and the squeezing and all of this works for you today, it might work for you differently tomorrow. And that's okay, too, right? Like we get to really meet our bodies where they're at in the moment. And it's understandable that they're going to shift and change just like everybody else's around us.
Wow. And do you have can we use some of these exercises on our little ones as well? Like do you have anything that you do to your daughter to help her like, calm down or center herself?
Yeah, I laugh because there's like all sorts of things that I feel like I try with her, and sometimes certain things work better than others.
I can
The big
imagine.
one that I right there sometimes I'm like, okay, well, never mind. um,
One thing working today and then the next week it's like, what are you doing?
right, exactly. The big one I love to do with my daughter that I think it is really rooted in my own like care for myself, but she loves participating in is anytime we go for a walk, and particularly where I live right now, like it's sort of, fall going into winter. The trees are really beautiful. The like air can feel sort of crisp, right? I really try, and as I'm noticing, like, and paying attention to the temperature and the wind and the colors that I see, I bring her into that too. I'll be like, hey, do you notice that it's kind of chilly out today? Do you see those red leaves? Do you see any other color leaves? Like, do you hear the cars going by right now? Or can you hear anything else that I'm not hearing? Right? Like, starting to really help her orient with the five senses, because that to me is what helps me sort of like arrive in nature, is like really connecting to the five senses. And so I pull her into that whenever I can. And for toddlers, right, parents of toddlers know that like usually they are paying attention to those things, and they
Yeah, I
might
was just
find things that you didn't even notice. You'll be like,
yeah.
oh, right, I didn't even realize that was there. They ask about things that you're like, I don't know how to answer that, right? Like, you're like, why do cars have wheels? Like, it's part of a car, right? So things like that, where you start to like orient yourself to being outside, being with them, but including them in that, right? You can ask them
Yeah.
about the things that you're paying attention to as well.
And I like that because they're naturally like that anyway, but also preserving that because at some point, like I feel like we disconnect with that part of us, so it's preserving it as long as possible too.
Yeah, exactly. And it's such a beautiful practice for us and for them to learn how to like really orient to being in the present moment, right? Like so much of what we learn as we're talking about, right, is like we have to just keep staying ahead of whatever's going on for everybody around us and really helping them and helping us come back to right where we are in this moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
love it. And I'd always like to ask, like, how do you navigate? Because you have a business and your mental health and yoga, plus you have a toddler. So how does that dynamic look like for you?
Yeah, I would say it's a combination of things, right? One of the primary ones being support around me. So I have a partner who's really helpful and supportive. We have childcare that's really helpful and supportive, right? Like those pieces feel like the absolute essential ones that
Right.
help us to do things and for help me to be able to, be with my clients, to show up for the full cup collective community, like to be able to do all these things, having care and support is essential. I would also say, like, I find myself really nurtured, like time with my daughter and time with work feel like they fill each other up to me. Like I feel so full by getting to be with clients, and then I get to go be with my daughter and I feel equally like, oh, this is exciting. It's a different muscle, it's a different way of getting to be. And so for me, they really sort of like nurture each other in a lot of ways,
Wow.
which I love. Again, it's not like every day is sunshine and rainbows, but I will
Right.
say that like on the whole, I do really like the balance of getting to do both. It feels really important to me. So again, having that like support of family, of childcare, and community feels really essential. And then, really being clear on my own boundaries of, and that has changed as my daughter's gotten older. When I was younger, I could offer some sessions in the evenings and be able to meet with folks then, and that felt okay. Now that doesn't feel as possible. My daughter's running about, like, I just can't be as present for people as I want to be. So navigating and being okay with my boundaries sort of shifting and changing in terms of when I can show up for people and when that feels like, hey, this is like the end of my workday and this is going to be where I close things out versus, oh, I can sort of hold space here, hold space there. I've also again become really boundaried about like my work time that is for me. So really being clear that like I don't see clients at certain times of day or certain days of the week, that really has helped me to sort of hold space for myself. And again, it's a constant practice. And for anybody who's listening, I think I posted about this probably a month ago. I realized that I was like putting clients on Fridays when I said to myself I wasn't going to do that, but I kept being like, well, this happened. So like, I'm just going to do it. It's okay. And then I realized every Friday was getting booked up. And I was like, oh, all this time for me is just like completely disappeared. And so really like holding myself accountable to like the space that I'm needing for myself and being
It's
like,
something
nope,
that can be so hard for us. Yeah,
so
especially as small
hard.
business owners. You want to like please your clients, but you have to put your like your priorities and your wants. If that's your me time, I'm so for that. And it's difficult. I find that
It's
difficult to
hard.
do.
It's so hard. It's so hard. And it's to me this like ongoing practice of like, you can do this. Like it is important for you to have that time. So those are some of the things. I will, again, I come to all of this so humbly and like I do things sometimes where I'm like, well, that day was exhausting and didn't work out for me in the way I thought it was going to. And that's okay. We try again tomorrow with this, the same sort of mindset of like, can I continue to be considering what I need as part of what I'm considering for everybody else right now?
Right. And I
Yeah.
like something else that you pointed out was being okay that your business may shift in different periods. Like what you could do when your daughter was one or two, or change when she's three. And yeah, I'm in the same boat now too. Like I can do things in the evening now, but I know that'll change, that'll shift. And sometimes that can be hard, especially for people who find it hard to accept change and don't want to disappoint people. Just embracing that, like being more flexible, especially during their younger years like this.
Yeah, it feels essential, right, for our own survival to be
Right.
able to sort of embrace that flexibility, right? Like
Right.
we gotta do it. Yeah.
And an unrelated question, do you still dance?
So I do a lot of dancing in my kitchen these days. I would say that's like my primary form of dance. I am so passionate about it still. I would say that like I do a lot of my own movement. Um, but I'm not in the like formal dance world as I once was. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel you. Yeah, we all have these things that we used to do when we were younger, and like people, do you still play rec? I'm like, no, not anymore. I feel like
Yeah.
that was a lifetime ago, even though. But, yeah, do you?
Yeah. I still have this idea that like I'm gonna go to some dance classes at some point, which I think I will. Like I feel really actually okay with like this could be a season right now where like I'm not in it as much and maybe I'll get back to it later. And like,
Yeah,
it's one of those the things that we feel passionate about or that like make us really like connect to ourselves when we're younger. Like we always have them. They're always there for us.
right. And we can pick them back up when time is due, or maybe we feel like it's not a part of us anymore, and we like that was just a beautiful chapter in our life. Either or, it's all good.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much. And how I liked in the podcast is I always ask moms, what is a self-care practice or something? I know self-care can sound kind of cliche sometimes, but any practice or thing that you love to do that helps you feel replenished and full cup.
Yeah, fill up my own cup. Oh, I have so many things that I love doing. It is the morning where I am right now. And one of the key things that I love is I make coffee. We make coffee every morning at my house. We have this like special creamer that we use that is not, I know you're a nutritionist, right? Or dietitian. Um,
Dietitian.
yeah, but that it is like a sweet creamer. It's like sugar and cream. And I have to tell you, like, I have one cup with it and it is so sweet. It makes my morning feel like really special. It
I'm
feels like
all
this
about balance.
special
So if
treat.
it
Yeah,
brings, yeah, it's fine.
exactly. It is all about this like special treat that I get to have in the morning. And it feels like it's something I look forward to when I start my day. And it's like one of the things that helps me
Wow.
like as like a touch point, like a lovely touch point throughout my day is my morning coffee with my sweet creamer.
Yeah, that's just, it sets the tone. It's like, okay, the day started, and you have, I love the idea of having to starting the day off with a little treat for yourself, something that, makes you excited about the morning, because sometimes it could be a drag if you like didn't feel like waking up.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, and I love
Yeah.
that. It's like as moms, sometimes it could be something so small and it could really make our day. And then, maybe before we thought of self-care as something like a massage, and all of those are great too. But yeah, it's cool.
It's finding these small pockets of joy, right? These small
Yeah,
pockets of feeling like we're doing something
it's,
kind and good just for us.
especially starting the day like that. That's awesome.
Totally.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah. I would love for you to tell us where can we connect with you and the Full Cup Collective.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I love chatting with you.
Yay.
So folks can find me at Embodied EP. It's Embodied Education and Practice, but it's embodiedep.com. And if you go there, you will find I have a freebie if folks are curious to like learn more, find other practices like the ones we did today. I have one called the 1 Minute Reset that's on there. If you're curious about checking out the Full Cup Collective, you can find all the information on there about that. And then you can always reach out to me via email. I'm Sarah at embodiedep.com.
Awesome. So I'll make sure all of that is in the show notes. Thank you again, Sarah, and I hope we can do this again in the future.
Me too.
All right.
Take care.
Bye. Take care.
And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it. And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it.